Hey guys! In this video we're making two different wire wrapped crystal sun catchers. A little hard to show you from this angle, but first up we've got a wire wrapped crystal with smaller wire in a twist design. This one's hanging by a corded thread. Then we've got our circle shaped wire ring, and our crystal here is wrapped with a thicker wire. We've made this one hanging from a wire as well. They're both really simple wire wrap designs, holding that crystal secure and hanging in the centre. Now starting with the circle shaped ring and the larger wire. So for this design we need about 13 inches of 20 gauge dead soft silver wire. This is enough wire just for a sort of medium sized polished crystal. Raw crystals work really well as well. My crystal is about 1.5 inches long, so if it's much bigger than that you need to use a longer length of wire. Now for our crystal wire wrap we start by making our bail. So leaving a little tail on the end of our wire straight, and then bringing the wire around our round nose pliers 2 times to make 2 loops around. Then we bring this little straight tail end piece that we left around the other wire, wrapping it around nice and tight to secure that bail in place. Crimping it in tight so there's no sharp edges. Now you can check your wire loops. Make sure they're sitting nice and round and next to each other. Now we want to place this little bail over the top and the centre of our crystal. So I just bend it over the top there. If I turn it on its side, you can see I've bent it over the middle of my crystal. Now we're going to start to work our wire across to the right hand side. So gently bending it and working it over that way. Now from here our crystal needs some wire to hold it secure around the base. So I want to bring the wire around this bottom part in a loop here. The loop must be smaller than the size of the crystal so that it's going to hold it in place. So I'm firmly holding the wire onto the crystal and then just gently bending the wire around this bottom part to come right around to form a loop. And then we start to bring the wire in a slightly upwards direction and bring it right around the crystal a couple of times so that it holds that crystal secure. Then we bring it up towards the centre at the top so that it can meet up again with the bail. So I like that top part of the wire to come up the back of the crystal so that it's opposite to the front part of the wire. It just helps to hold that crystal secure. Meeting up with the bottom of the bail there, and then we can bring it around a couple of times nice and tight to secure that crystal in place. Once you're happy with it, then you can cut that tail off nice and short and crimp it in tight so there's no sharp edges. Now you can take some time with your pliers and go over your whole wire wrap. Make sure your wires are sitting how you want them and that your bail is sitting nice and straight and round. Tweaking everything so you're happy with how it's sitting. Once you're happy with the wire wrapped crystal portion of your design, then we grab our 10mm jump rings, opening one up by twisting it sideways with 2 pliers, and then placing your crystal wire wrap and the bigger metal circle inside as well. Twisting it with those pliers sideways and closing it back up again. You can add more jump rings if you want it to hang further down in the circle towards the middle. For the hanger part we just use another length of the 24 gauge wire, placing it through that little jump ring and then placing a little crimp bead onto the wire as well. Placing the other end through as well and pulling it through to make a nice small loop. Making sure the wires are sitting next to each other and then crimping that crimp bead nice and tight to secure that wire loop. Cutting that tail off nice and short and tidy. On the other end we can place another crimp bead and form another loop as well, placing the end of the wire through the crimp bead as well to form a loop, making sure those wires are sitting next to each other, and then crimping that bead on nice and tight to secure that loop. And there's your first hanging crystal with the larger 20 gauge wire wrap. Now onto the crystal wire wrap with a smaller wire twist design. For this one here we need two 12-inch lengths of 24 gauge wire. This is for a crystal that's about 1.5 inches long, so you might need to adjust that wire length if it's a bigger crystal. Now we start by placing the ends of our wire together and following it back down to about the middle. So this is a 12-inch length of wire, the middle is about 6 inches, and then I go just under that, so at about the 5-inch mark. Holding it on that mark in my left hand, I bring these wires apart and do 5 full twists around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Making sure to wrap each wire equally around the other wire, and bringing these wires on the left apart as well so your twist doesn't come undone. So you should have a nice, tidy, even looking twist. Now you want to figure out how you want your crystal to sit, so if it's got a point on the top or the bottom. Mine's going up this way, so placing the twist on the side of our crystal near the bottom, so it sits up and down on the side. And then we bring these wires around the bottom of the crystal so that they can meet up on the opposite side. We're making a loop here to hold the base of your crystal, so it needs to be smaller than your crystal size so you don't lose it out the bottom. Now where these wires overlap on this opposite side, we're going to do our 5 twists here as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now with these wires that come off each side of the twist, you just bring them across the way they are naturally sitting, so they overlap with the wire next to it. So this one meets up with that wire there, and then we do our 5 twists here as well. And then on the opposite side as well, with these wires here where they meet up, doing 5 twists here, working our way to the top of the crystal. Placing more twists as you work your way up if your crystal size needs it. Once you're near the top, you won't have space to do any more twists. So at the top here, I bring 2 opposite wires across so they meet in the middle and twist them together. And then add these other wires in as well, wrapping them around the base. Twisting them all around each other to make a nice strong top to secure that wire wrap and hold that crystal in place. Trying to make sure those wires are wrapped equally around each other. You're not just wrapping 1 or 2 wires around the other wires. Once we've got a nice tight twist, we gently bend the twist one way and then grab it just above the bend with our round nose pliers, bringing the wire around and then in between the crystal and pliers, bringing it around a few times to make a nice secure loop, making sure it's nice and tight. Then once you're happy with it, you can cut these tails off, crimping them in tight so there's no sharp edges and it looks nice and tidy. Now you can check over your whole wire wrap, make sure it's sitting how you want it and everything's nice and secure. Making sure that your bail is nice and round as well and sitting straight. Once you're happy with your wire wrap, then you can secure it onto your metal shape. So again, using our 10mm jump rings, twisting them sideways to open, and then placing the loop on our wire wrapped crystal inside the ring. This time I'll place a few extra jump rings to form a little chain so that the crystal sits down further inside the heart. And then placing your crystal and your metal shape inside the jump ring and doing it back up. To hang this one, we're just placing a black thread on it. So I'm using 2mm satin nylon thread, making a nice long loop and tying a knot, and then just wrapping it around the crystal and pulling the thread through the loop. And there we have our 2 crystal hanger designs. We've got this one with the smaller 24 gauge wire and a twist design, and then this one with the slightly larger 20 gauge wire and a simple wire wraparound design.